Men love adventures. They just do. You take some of the great stories like King Arthur, the Iliad, different movie shows. We like the action shows. We like the adventure, the grand thing. We play video games where you can search worlds and discover new things that are out there. Men love searching. It's treasure hunting. It's adventuring. It's what we do. Well, finding the right woman for you can be a lot like the ultimate adventure. It really can. Men have gone on these adventures throughout history, but winning the affections of a fair lady has caused a lot of men to reach beyond themselves and change the world. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Well, it's kind of the way we're wired. We just are as men. We want to win the girl. And I don't think we should look down on this. We need to embrace that because that's part of who we are. And what we want to do is find the right woman for us. And that scares a lot of young men today. They're scared. It can be scary for men who are looking again, men who've gone through divorce or breakup or who have lost their wife. And that's when it feels awkward and weird. It's kind of scary for men a lot of times to kind of get back out there or to be out there in the right way. How do I find the right one? But finding the right woman actually doesn't start with her. It doesn't. It seems like you want to, I got to look out there and find the perfect woman. Well, there's no such thing as a perfect woman because there's no such thing as a perfect man. And what we have to do as men is be in the right headspace, or it's just going to be a problem trying to find the right woman. You want to make sure that you're thinking clearly. Because as men, if we're not thinking clearly, we kind of get inside our own heads and we got all kinds of weirdness going on up there at times. And it isn't fair to the woman when men play on their emotions and lead them on. If there's men who they're really looking for a relationship, and if you are, look, don't deny it. Don't say, I don't need a relationship. Say, no, I'd like to be in a relationship. You should be out there looking. But if you're not looking, don't lead women on. Don't act like you are just because you want to have sex or something like that, because that's just wrong. You don't want to do that. That's being less than a man. So today we're going to talk about how to find the right woman for you. So let's jump in.
Welcome to the Confident Man Podcast, empowering men with the confidence they need to live their adventure. Now, here is your host, David Maxwell.
Hey guys, welcome to the Confident Man Podcast. I am so glad you joined me here today. And don't forget, those of you who are listening to the audio version, we are back on YouTube. If you go to David Maxwell Coaching, you can get these podcasts in a video version if that's what you prefer. Some guys are asking for it, so we're making that available to you. You can have the video or the audio, whatever's best for your schedule. Now, as men, have you ever looked back over your life and been amazed at your own ignorance? I have. When I look back over my life, especially when it comes to dating and those early years for me, I look back and I think, man, how goofy was I? Now, don't get me wrong. I wasn't a player. I wasn't one of those guys who dated a ton of women, mainly because I was just too goofy to be a player. I did want to be a player. I wanted to be the man, but I just wasn't. Why? Because, I was insecure. I've talked about that a lot. In my early 20s, I was incredibly insecure. I was worried about what everybody thought of me. I didn't think very much of myself. And a lot of times I went into relationships thinking, what can they bring me? And really my relational focus was not so much the girl, but it was myself. And that's just not good. It was selfish. And when I look back now, I regret it because for me, I lost a lot of time that I really could have been investing in myself. I could have been growing. I could have been doing some things, but I got caught up in that relational buzz that you get. When you first start dating someone, you get excited about it. And what happened was I got caught up in the relationship and not caught up in my own growth. So I didn't start growing till later. And really, for us as men, we've got to understand that relationships are the reality. We love them. They're great. We're created for them. But when you need a relationship, when you need the relationship to do certain things for you, it's not good for us as men. And I think a lot of guys are like that today. They want that buzz. They want that thrill of a relationship, but they're not really growing themselves. they're not really becoming the right men. What they're doing is they're focusing on finding the one. You know, Dave, if I could just find the right woman, and people get excited. They're looking, they look online, they look all over the world. I just was talking to a friend of mine recently who he knows a bunch of guys who went over to the Philippines and they got wives over there and they have great marriages. And I told him, I said, you should go. And we both laughed. But there's a lot of guys who do that. They're trying to find the one. They think, well, I haven't found the one here, so maybe she is overseas. Maybe I can find her over there. So what it is a lot of guys get caught up in that action of where's the one? And we kind of think of it like we do movies. You'll see her across the room. She's the beautiful woman who comes walking to you. She's a supermodel. She's misunderstood by everyone, but you get her. It's kind of like men, we kind of create our own fan fiction in our head. It's like a guy who thinks, one day what's going to happen is I'm going to be on my online game because I online game, like 8 to 10 hours a day. And there's going to be this other player that we're going to become friends. We're going to get to know each other and begin to like each other. And it turns out she's a supermodel who's incredibly lonely and just wants to spend time with a real person. And I am that real person, and guys have this fantasy. We always think it's girls, but guys do the same thing. They create this fan fiction inside their head. And today, one of the biggest things that's hurting men is they're not really looking for the right woman as much because they've got the virtual woman. They've got the online world of women who'll show themselves to you for the right price, or the online porn world. And so they don't go out looking for a relationship because they think I've got everything I need right here. And the problem is what that does for men is it makes them even more insecure. And insecurity is something that drives men, no matter where they're at, no matter their economic, how much money they have. I just saw something recently about Davos, which is a meeting of all these like real powerful people from around the world. They get together in this swanky town. I think it's in Switzerland. And it's like the richest of the rich. And the news report talked about how many prostitutes, high dollar prostitutes, were brought into town for the meeting. So here you have men who could buy whatever they wanted, but they're still so insecure they have to pay for a woman because they're scared to go get one themselves. They're scared of what's going to happen to them. They have everything. It's kind of like that old U2 song. They still haven't found what they're looking for. And a lot of men are like that. And here's the deal. Finding the right woman isn't complicated, but it does take hard work and patience. It just does. And what we have to do as men is have the right mindset about it. So we're going to talk about what that right mindset is. And we're going to talk about the one big truth that we all have to get. We're going to talk about the mom syndrome and the reality of that for a lot of us as guys. And we're going to talk about the past ghost of relationships and how that affects us today. Okay, guys, the first thing we want to talk about when it comes to finding the right woman for you is the one big truth. Now you need to listen to this. You need to listen. It's very important. Get a little closer to the TV or the radio or your phone, whatever you're listening to. Turn your earphones up and understand this. Every guy needs to learn this one big truth. She won't complete you. Let me say it again. She won't complete you. It just won't happen. It's a huge mistake that a lot of men and women live with. They're looking for the one. And when I say the one, imagine music playing, angelic lights beaming down, because that's how a lot of us are. We want to find the one. If I could find the right woman, it would fix everything in my life. It's just like the movies. They find the right one and everything happens. They begin to make money. Their life changes for the better. Everybody's happy in 2 hours. And we think that's real life. But life isn't like that. It's just not. You see, the problem with it is us as men, that one attitude, when we say we're looking for the one, what it does for us a lot of times is it gives us an avenue for blame. It does. When we're looking for the one, we're looking outside of ourselves. So what we want to do is say, okay, I want to find the right woman. If I find the right woman, everything's going to get fixed and I won't have these problems. In other words, if I have problems still, I didn't find the right woman. It's her fault. And that's what we do. That's what we do. We come in with these excuses. Well, if she understood me more, I wouldn't have these problems. I was doing fine until she came into my life. So instead of taking responsibility for ourselves as men, what we do a lot of times is we shift that responsibility. And when you're looking for the one and you're putting all of you into, oh, I want to find the one, what you're doing is you're giving her the responsibility of your life and you're kind of shifting all that to her and taking it off yourself. It's not fair to her. It's not fair to you. It's not good for you. And as men, as we hold someone up as the one, what we're actually doing is giving them a godlike status in our life. When you look at someone as the one, what you're doing is you're expecting perfection. And here's the truth. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. It could be the most beautiful woman in the world. She's going to do things that irritate you. It could be, for women, they're looking for the right man. He could be the most beautiful man in the world. He's going to do things that irritate you. Why? Because we're people. Every person is different. And the beauty of a relationship is you have two imperfect people who come together and agree to a lifelong commitment to each other. That's what marriage is all about. And they begin to work on that and they both grow through it. But if you go in expecting this person to be the one, then you expect her to just get you. And therefore, you don't have to do any work in the relationship because it's all her fault. Because she's the godlike person. Well, you're supposed to be omnipotent, omnipresent. You should know everything because you're the one. I don't have to do any work. It's all on you. And that's a bad way to view relationships. It is. It's a lazy way. It's not fair for the women. It's not good for us as men. And what we have to do is not hold them up to that status. We don't want women to do this to us. You don't want a woman who marries you to expect perfection from you, do you? You'd be like, well, I'm not perfect. But a lot of times we do that to women. We hold them up. Oh, she's the one. She's perfect. And it's just not that way. You've got to get that truth in you. And you have to understand that as men, our completeness isn't based on a relationship. Who you are as a man is not based on who you date. Your manliness doesn't show based on your relationships. It's just not true. It's just not the way it is. Being able to get a woman doesn't make you more of a man. There are plenty of guys out there who get dates. They get women. There's guys who go through marriages, multiple marriages, and they're still looking. Have you ever known that guy who sleeps around? There are guys out there who, how can I put this in a good way? I don't know. They kind of just whore around. They're male whores. And they just go around and they sleep with whoever. Well, the funny thing about those guys is those guys are actually out there trying to find themselves as a man. They're proving their own manhood to themselves through sexual conquest. I've slept with 15 girls. Okay, there's deer in the woods who can say that. Are they more manly than us? No, it doesn't happen that way. But what these guys are doing is they're basing their manhood on how they perform sexually, how many girls they get. And all that does is for them, it's their way of saying, I'm a man. See, I had sex. I'm a man. Well, that doesn't necessarily make you a man. What it means is as men, we're not complete. So we're out there trying to find our completeness by sleeping around with people. It just doesn't work that way. Your completeness does not come from an outside relationship. It just doesn't. See, because men who look for the completeness outside of themselves, they actually give up control. When we look for completeness in a relationship, what we're doing is we're giving up control of that relationship to the other person. The other person will run the relationship because what we're doing is we're saying, you complete me. Therefore, you're in charge of everything. And we don't take charge of ourselves. because we need the relationship at that point. We have to have the relationship. You say, I don't need anybody. I can go to any girl I want. No, no, no. You're just doing the same thing. You're just doing it different people. You're still looking for completeness. And see, what you want to do as a man is be able to go into a relationship and instead of giving up control, instead of saying, okay, you're going to complete me, you want to give yourself to that relationship to where both of you commit yourselves to each other. You see, that's very different from you going in saying, you complete me. What you do is you go into a relationship saying, I'm bringing my complete self to you. That's a very different thing. That's what women want. That's what men want. And when that happens, it can be a beautiful thing. Now, does that mean things are going to be perfect? No. But that's the whole point of relationships. You're two complete people who are working to be whole together. You're not completing each other. You're bringing the complete self to the relationship. That's the right kind of woman that you want to find, and you want to be the right kind of man for that. You don't want to be needing a relationship to survive. Men who need relationships a lot of times are controlled by those relationships. They're controlled by their base appetites at times, and all they're doing is looking for completeness. And today what we have is we have a problem with the passive problem that a lot of guys are dealing with. Because they're not complete, they don't feel that sense of completeness. They don't feel that sense of, I know who I am. They go passive. They kind of back off. And the reason is they're looking for that completeness outside themselves, which causes them to be passive because they're not initiating any change in their own life. They're not taking responsibility for themselves. And so they have this gnawing sense of, I'm not manly enough. And it's weird how guys manifest that. You know, a lot of guys, when they go passive, they just kind of settle. You know, I've got a job. It's good. I get decent money. I'm not going to try to do any better in my life. I'm not going to try to obtain anything. I'm not saying you have to be someone who moves up the ladder and all that, but are you growing as a man or have you settled? And that's what we have to understand. If we've just settled, we're not trying to even grow ourselves, then we've probably become pretty passive. And a lot of guys are like that in their relationships. They want their wives to take charge of everything. They want their wives to do everything. And they just want to kind of go passive. I just want to sit on my couch. I want to sit in my recliner, watch TV, eat, and do nothing else. And that's just not good because that passive problem starts affecting every area of our life, especially a relationship. And a lot of young men who are passive aren't even getting into relationships. They're avoiding them altogether. And it just becomes a bigger and bigger problem as they just kind of say, I don't need a relationship. If I want to have some kind of sex thing, I'll just go watch porn for a little bit. And we've had that pornification of society. And then that also messes men up because they look at that and they think, I can't do that. One, I don't look like that. One, how does that guy do that? How does he do it for that long? How does he do this? You know, and guys ask all these questions because it's not real. You look at the behind the scenes story of a lot of the porn shows, and guys are on all kinds of medicine. They get needles shot into places you don't want a needle shot into so they can act like they're like that. And so guys have a messed up view of sex. And that comes from the passive problem. So that makes them even feel more incomplete, so they just avoid relationships altogether. Guys, the one big truth is our completeness as men has nothing to do with relationships. Your completeness as a man doesn't come from the relationship you have. What you want to do is be a complete man. When you are a man who seeks to find your own completeness, when you are a man who seeks to grow, the better your relationships will be because you're bringing your whole self to it. And the more complete you are as a man, the more you're growing and learning, the easier it's going to be for you to find the right woman for you. All right, the second thing we want to talk about when it comes to finding the right woman for you is the mom syndrome. And we've got to deal with this, guys, because the mom syndrome is something many men live in, but they're in denial. And I'm not talking like a weird Freud, being sexually attracted to your mom like that or any of the perversion that's out there and stuff like that. What I'm talking about is a lot of men never think about the fact that they're going to marry someone like their mom, but a lot of them do. A lot of guys do. They marry someone who's just like their mom. They may not look like their mom. And in some ways, they may not outwardly act like their mom, but they're their mom, or they want them to be their mom. And how does that happen? Well, one of the main ways is guys who look to women to be their motivator to do better in life. And a lot of guys do that. They say, I just want to find the right person because it's going to make me want to change. And what they're doing is they're putting pressure on the girl and they're taking it off themselves. We should not need a woman to make us want to be better. If we do, that's a problem. And that's not her problem. It's not her fault. That's your problem. It's your fault. Because what you're doing is you're putting that responsibility on her, like we talked about a minute ago. But what's happening is when we think, if I find the right girl, if I find the girl who's going to fix me, we become lazy. We're not working to grow ourselves. We're not growing our own personal responsibility. We look into it for her. We expect it from her. And that's a problem. That's not good. And so what you're doing is you're going to move her into mom mode. Now, a lot of women buy into this, and it has to do with this fixation of I can fix him. We've all seen that. We've all seen the girl who likes the guy who kind of a bum. He doesn't do anything or he mistreats her or all this. And she's got this thing of I can fix him. I'm the one who can fix him. So when you get a guy who says, I need a girl to fix me, and a girl who says, I can fix him, that's a problem. Because a lot of times he's not going to take responsibility for himself. She's going to take on too much responsibility, and it's going to be a bad relationship. For the woman, she's going to get that Beauty and the Beast vibe. Oh, he's a beast, but I'm going to tame him. I think I heard Jordan Peterson talking about that recently. It was really good because a lot of women are like that. The problem is a lot of men stay beast. They don't change. Beauty and the Beast, he changed. But a lot of men, they don't. And that's a reality because the man expects the woman to motivate him. And the woman thinks I can fix him. But it doesn't work that way. Change for us as guys, real change, it's got to come from within us. Expecting a girl to motivate us is asking her to be our mom. She's going to end up carrying out all the functions of a mom in our life. Now, it may start out sweet and nice. Oh, she does everything for me. She does this, she does that. And she makes me want to be a better man. Now, there's nothing wrong with being motivated by her, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But when you let her take the role of a mom, eventually it's going to wear out. And then she's going to start nagging. She's going to start doing that passive aggressive, those little snipey comments. Have you ever seen the old couples who are like that? They just sit there and passive aggressive each other to death. I mean, they're just like, well, if you hadn't, why don't you get off your butt? And, of course, that's not very passive, but you know what I'm saying? Those old couples, they just are almost fighting all the time. And you're like, what's up with y'all? Well, a lot of times it came out because he wanted her to mom him. And she did it, but then she started resenting it. Then he started resenting it too. And a lot of times when a man wants a woman to be his mom, it's going to lower her expectations of what men are and who they are. And that's going to hurt us as guys. If we have lower expectations, we don't have to step up. She doesn't expect anything of me. Why should I do anything? And it hurts the man, but it also hurts the children. Think about this. If children are brought up in a home where the wife has to be a mom to the dad as well as them, that's going to mess up their view of relationships. It just is. They're going to pick up that same attitude. The boys, a lot of times, are put down. They're told they're not going to amount to much. They're told they can't do much because that's what they see in their dad. The girls are going to see that, oh, I've got to take control of everything. I've got to run everything. It's the only way because guys are pretty useless. And a lot of people are brought up in families like that and they see it as a negative, and then it hurts their future relationships. Instead of seeing the beauty of two people who come together and have a mutually respectful relationship. And that's what you want. You don't want a mom. You want a woman who's complete in and of herself, and both of you bring your full selves to the relationship. Expecting a girl to be a mom is lazy and it builds resentment. As men, we've got to take responsibility. We can't give that to her. We can't expect her to motivate us. Now, we can be motivated by a woman, and that's the difference. Here's the deal. If you're working and taking responsibility for yourselves, you can be motivated to be better for her, but you can't expect her to push you and nag you to do it yourself. You've got to want to do it. That's the difference. You can be motivated by a woman. Motivation is fine, but in the end, you still have to take that responsibility, no matter what motivates you. And this is actually kind of natural for men and women. A guy meets a girl, she's impressive, and he's like, I got to step up my game. So what happens? He takes charge of himself and becomes a better man. She's attracted to him as a better man. He doesn't expect her to be his mom. He expects her to be the woman he wants. And that's the way it's designed to be. As men, we want to find the right woman for us. We do. And there's a lot of great women out there. There's some incredible women. We need a woman that we can love and that we can respect as an individual. All of those things are true. It's unfair to put women in the position to be our mom. We want them to maybe be the mother of our children, but not us. We want them to be our wife. We want them to be our lovers. That's the way we want them to be. And how that happens is when we as men take full responsibility for ourselves. It helps us be better men, and it helps us find better women. The third area we want to talk about when it comes to finding the right woman is the past ghost. The truth is, for a lot of men, they're having a hard time finding the right woman because they're living with the ghost of past relationships. Now, I'm not talking about literal ghosts. It's not a Matthew McConaughey movie. I think he made a movie like that. And I don't believe in ghosts. They make great characters for shows and movies and all that, but they're just not real. But for a lot of men, they're living with the ghost of past relationships. And when I say that, what I mean is what's going on inside their head. The good and bad of those relationships of the past can give men a wrong mindset that really limits their ability to find the right woman now, because there's still stuff going on in their brain. It's still hurting them. And the truth is, past hurts don't help future relationships. They just don't. And a lot of men, when they get hurt in a relationship, they act like, well, no big deal. Whatever. And this is especially not true because men are really good at putting on masks. We've talked about that. But a lot of guys, if they got dumped, if the girl cheated on him, divorced him, cheated on him and divorced him, the list could go on. And a lot of men will be like, that's no big deal. No biggie, whatever. But the truth is, it was huge. And it really hurt us emotionally as men because men are extremely emotional, even if they don't show their emotions. I talk about that a lot. Men have very strong emotions. They're very passionate, even if they don't show them all the time. Their emotions can be within them, but it can cause them to get hurt really, really bad. And so a lot of guys do, when they've been hurt, they get jaded, they get bitter, they get hard, and it affects all future relationships. And what men have to do is they've got to take the time to deal with that hurt. They've got to deal with those past relationships, or it's going to hurt their future ones. It just is. And you say, well, I don't want to. Well, okay. But then if future relationships have the same problems, you can't whine and complain about it because you didn't fix the past ones. We've got to deal with that pain. We've got to deal with that stuff. We've got to seek to fix it. And it means doing the hard work of doing what I call going on the inward journey. Men have to do that. They say, well, men don't do that. We're tough. We just move on. We are tough. We do move on. And men have accomplished great things doing that. But a lot of those men are relationally impotent because they've never sought to fix themselves. So they drive themselves to do outside things that other people give them applause for, but they don't have good relationships. They're missing those relationships. Now, the best way to do this is to get help. It just is. It's hard to do by yourself because it's hard for you to look objectively at yourself. It's hard for you to look at relationships and not be hurt. And because it hurts, you don't want to deal with it. That's why, sometimes we need the counselors, the therapists, or even online resources, online coaching, or a great site like boundaries.me, which has all kinds of articles and videos to help you learn how to kind of look within and say, okay, what can I do to fix this past hurt? Those things give you ammunition to win the war so those past hurts don't hurt future relationships. And that's what you want to do. You want to put those ghosts out of commissions. And when you learn how to deal with that, you can be the more better version of yourself. And a lot of guys, what they do is instead of trying to fix themselves, they get out of a relationship or they get hurt or whatever, they rebound and they jump into another relationship. And that's really taking our ghost with us into the next relationship. It is. We do it because we don't want to fix anything, so we just try and cover it up with another relationship. It's like putting blanket on top of blanket on top of blanket. It doesn't work because we're not changing. And what we're doing is we just shift the blame to the next person or to the last person. Oh, well, I think you're the right one because the last one, she wasn't the right one. Even though I thought she was the right one, she's not the right one. But you're going to be the right one. Then 2 years later, oh, you're not the right one. She's the right one. Now, here's the deal with it. A lot of guys get really hurt in the relationship. Like, let's look at if a woman cheated on you. Let's say you were married, she had an affair and left you. That's devastating. And, the majority of the blame is hers. Let's say she did it. She chose to do it. She left you. She abandoned you. You've got a lot of hurt. You got a lot of anger. All of those things are real. But what you want to do is be able to go into the relationship and say, why did she cheat? And you could say, well, because she's just a bad person. And you don't say the word bad. You say lots of other words because you're angry and you're hurt. I get that. But here's the truth. Why did she do it? Maybe the relationship wasn't strong enough on its own, or you just picked someone bad. You see, I'm not saying that the majority of the blame is not hers. It is. But what I'm saying is maybe there's some things we can do as men to grow ourselves so we have a stronger relationship where having an affair is not tempting to any future woman we're married to. Or we look at it and say, okay, I picked a psycho girl. I don't want to pick another psycho. That means you have to learn some things so you don't pick another psycho. Have you ever known those guys? They go from psycho girl to psycho girl, and you think, what's up with them? Well, a lot of times they're just rebounding. So they kind of go with what they know. They kind of go with that person that's easy. And what we want to do as men is fix us before we jump into a relationship. Again, I'm not saying you're going to be perfect, but I'm saying rebounding never fixes the relationship. It doesn't fix the hurt. It doesn't take it away. You want to deal with the past hurts. And the reason we do that is because bitterness does not give us a great ability to choose great in relationships. It doesn't influence great relationship choices. Have you ever been around a bitter man? He's not the funnest person to be around, and he's not going to be the easiest person to be in a relationship with. But men who are bitter make bad choices. They're going to pick the wrong kind of women. They go to the extremes. Oh, she hurt me so much, I'm going to make it to where that never happens again. So they go to relational extremes and pick some really bad choices. Like I've seen men who keep going out with young women. They may be 30s, 40s, 50s, but they're dating, girls who are 21, 22, 23. And you think, why is that? I mean, physically you understand it, but mentally, and it'd be hard to really get that. What do you have in common with them? Well, the reason they do that is because a lot of times they maintain control of the relationship. Because they're older, they control the relationship. And a lot of times that comes out of being hurt in relationships. They've gotten bitter. So they're like, I'm not going to get hurt again. So I'm going to only go out with girls who are in this emotional time frame. And if they start getting older and more mature, I'm going to move on because then they're going to expect more of me and I might get hurt. So they kind of ward off with that. And then they're also insecure, but that's not for this show. We've talked about that on other podcasts. So what we have to do as men is we have to deal with our bitterness. We have to deal with the past hurts, or it's going to infect all our future relationships. The time and effort that we deal with this stuff is going to make us better men. It's going to make us stronger men. And I promise you, it's going to help you have the ability to look and find the right woman for you. All right, gentlemen, closing out the show today, let's understand that finding the right woman for you is not complicated. It's not, but it does take hard work and patience. And it's not that you have to go out searching for her. It's not that you're searching in the woods for the right woman. It's not some caveman movie where you get a club and you bash her on the head, carry her off. She's the right one for me. She was the slowest. I got her. That's not how it works. You actually have to work on yourself. You have to be the right kind of man. And when you are the right kind of man, you'll find the right woman for you. And you say, well, I messed up in the past. I didn't pick the right woman. Well, we talked about that. And you've got to understand a few things to get that mindset. The one big truth, she will not complete you. Your completeness does not come from a woman. It does not come from a relationship. It just doesn't. You've got to be complete as a man and bring your completeness to the relationship. The other thing you've got to understand is the mom syndrome. You cannot expect a woman to be your mom. A woman you're in a relationship with cannot be your mom. You don't want to give her that role. It's just not the way it is. You have to take responsibility, not give that to her to where she has to push you. She has to drive you. That's not the right way. It's going to hurt the relationship. And then the other one is the past hurts. You've got to deal. If you've been hurt, and I'm not saying it wasn't real, it was real, but you've got to fix the hurts. You've got to deal with those hurts, or you're going to carry them into every future relationship. And it's going to skew your view of finding the right kind of woman, and you'll probably pick the wrong one again. And the truth with all this is it just takes work. It's like working out. To stay in shape, you've got to work out. And what you're doing is you're getting in relational shape. You're getting yourself ready to have a relationship. And that's what I would encourage you to do. It's not about finding the right woman. It's about being the right man. You work on being the right man, and I promise you, you will find the right woman. And you will find the one that fits you better because you're going to get rid of all that other stuff that you're doing. So go out there, make yourself the right man, and you'll find the right woman.
You've been listening to the Confident Man Podcast. Click subscribe so you don't miss a future episode. You can connect with David on Facebook and Instagram at David the Maxwell. Find resources to help you as a man at theconfidentman.me. That's theconfidentman.me.